So to answer your question, yes, there's something percolating, and it reminds me, it's worse, but it reminds me of the Carter era before Reagan won, that people are ready to throw the bums out, and they don't care who the bums are. They're that furious right now. I mean, I'll be honest with you. When I did 2 book signings, and we had 8,000 people show up at each one, and I sat there for 7.5 hours and didn't move at each one, and I couldn't finish. I knew in March something was going on, something was up. Yes, sir.
Sir, would you mind commenting on what you see as the threats to liberty posed by the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, which this current administration intends on ratifying?
Well, we don't want international bodies determining how we raise children in this country, and that's the bottom line. I don't want international bodies doing a damn thing, to be perfectly honest with you. And the reason is, and by the way, I didn't originally necessarily get into all this UN thing. I thought those people were all a bunch of kooks too. But then, you think about it, the effort of the left, they would like nothing more than to have decisions made about our nation's sovereignty and what goes on within our nation to be made by these international bodies, international tribunals, and so forth, in order to impose on us views of people who don't share our culture and our traditions and our values, and to separate us and our ability to affect them at the ballot box by making these international arrangements. Now, I believe in some international arrangements, of course, military, diplomatic, but I do not believe issues that are to be decided by the citizenry through their elected representatives should be sent offshore under any circumstances. And you know, the purpose of a society is to preserve itself. If we can't preserve ourselves, then what are we? If we can't preserve this society and our traditions and history and our law, then we're nothing. And this is a chipping away at that. This whole global citizen thing deserves a little bit more thought. I can promise you that the dictators who run China think nothing about being global citizens. I can promise you that the Castro brothers think nothing about being global citizens. In other words, our enemies view this time in American history as an opportunity to pursue their own interests, the interests of their own nation state, and they're not thinking globally unless it has to do with acquiring as much power as they can. So I don't like all these international arrangements which involve us ceding law and authority to people we don't know in tribunals that we have no control over. Yes, sir.
Sir, what are your thoughts on how society today has become centered around the state, in that whenever we have a problem, we've been trained to always think the government must solve it, in contrast to the Founding Fathers who viewed the family, the church, the individual as the center of society, and there's where we solve our problems? And does this not also help explain why the statists are always so hostile towards morality, the family, and religion? Because they really view the family and religion as rivals and obstacles to the tyranny of the state that they're trying to carry forward.
Yeah, I agree with all that. And I think there's a lot to that. And that's the war on the civil society. That's at least part of it. You know, let's take religion for a second. Do you think a single colony would have, and that's what they were, I mean, they became states, but they were colonies before, would have ratified the Constitution under the current notion of separation of church and state? Do you think a single one would have ratified it? No. Now, does that mean we support states having religion as an official religion? No. And it's a phony argument, because states stopped having official religions about 20 years, 30 years after the nation was founded. The people of the states wouldn't tolerate it. You know, there's so much magnificence that we're surrounded by as a result of liberty that it's impossible to catalog it. You know, we don't even, the general we don't even recognize it. And yet, you see, statism is very tangible. I will give you this, I will do this, I will do this. And often we're in the position of saying, no, leave us alone, we'll figure this stuff out. Leave us alone, we'll handle it. And that's the frustration so many of us have, that liberty is something we can talk about, and liberty certainly has consequences, but and its consequences are tangible. But in explaining it, first of all, you have to have an IQ over 14, and secondly, if you're a drone who just loves whatever government benefit you're getting, you're not going to be open to listening to it. Does that make sense? Of course it does. Yes.
One of the things that made Reagan, I think, so effective was his optimism about the country. And it's a pretty dark time for conservatives. And we get cast as being angry, which I think there's a lot of reason to be angry right now. But do you have any just advice or thoughts on sort of how to maintain a kind of optimism which is attractive to independents and people that?
I don't think our candidates lack a smiley face. They all walk around with smiley faces. They're all nice enough people. And I don't think that's our problem. I think our problem is we don't have a conservative. A candidate who can articulate our principles. And the more attractive that candidate is, I'm all for it. But I have to tell you something. If you listen to Reagan's speeches when he was campaigning for Goldwater, he was not very happy. He was very angry. But do I think it's better to be positive and happy? Of course I do. But right now I would just like to find an articulate conservative who can speak in complete sentences.
Yes,
is this
sir.
a Jerry Lewis marathon here? What are we doing here? Yes, go right ahead.
We have 3 minutes.
What do you call it? Telethon, yes.
This room here is filled with Republicans and libertarians alike, conservatives. But each time we're faced with a race in which there is a Republican and a libertarian, one siphons votes from the other and we're bound to lose, which we saw happen in New York recently. How should we be moving forward now to ensure that we're not split the way the Democrats have been split for so long?
Well, we need to nominate free market conservatives. That would help. Again, this really isn't rocket scientists. It was done only, how many years ago was it? Reagan ran. 29. There you go. 29 years ago. And I think libertarians, an authentic conservative libertarians would support. Now, as for the 23rd, I'm thrilled about what happened in the 23rd. We prevented a left-wing phony from becoming a member of Congress where she would have sat for the next 20 years and been unable to remove. She lost and revealed herself. Suddenly she wasn't for a big tent. She came out for the Democrat, and this guy Hoffman, as inarticulate but authentic as he is probably going to run again and probably win. So, these electoral victories, you don't necessarily win them all at once. You've got to build and build and build toward a momentum and pick them off here and there where you can. I mean, we didn't win every seat in Virginia, but we won a hell of a lot of them. 2 years ago, we got slaughtered. Who would have thought would have happened in Virginia? What happened in Virginia? There's counties in New York that people aren't talking about where well-entrenched leftists or liberals were thrown out. So, we just have to keep at it. And I honestly believe that the conservative and there are huge differences too, but where they overlap, conservative/libertarian philosophies are extremely attractive philosophies if you explain them properly. If you tie them to everyday life. Yes, sir.
Yes, this will be the last question.
Attorneys who have not only taken oaths in support of civil society, but for many is it actually a calling to do that. But what would you suggest for people in this room to say to people who replied, the house is on fire, and there is even a point where the firemen run out of the house instead of running in? Better to let it collapse and rebuild later.
Well, they have their wish right now. Isn't that what's going on? I mean, what's it going to take? You got $12 trillion that he just imposed in debt, which is likely going to be $21 trillion. They're destroying the currency. They're trying to destroy the healthcare system. I never thought in my lifetime the GM would be owned by the government and the UAW. They're taking over the student loan system. They've basically taken over the interest rate decisions for credit card companies. They run the mortgage business in this nation. People don't seem to realize that. They're not done. They want to do their cap and trade. I'd say the house is burning right about now. It's time to turn the hoses on it.